Welcome to the Spiritual Freedom Support Call number 27. We're sort of short today with people, but how's everyone? Well, Ruma and Christine, how are you? How are you guys doing?
We're good.
I know at least one more person will be joining us, but he said he might be a little bit late. So, okay. So you said you had a question?
Yes, I did.
Okay, you can start. Oh, there's Justin. Hi, Justin.
So,
hang on. Justin, are you there?
Okay.
Yep.
There you are. Cool. All right. How you doing?
I'm good. How about you? How you doing?
Good. Good. Very good. So, all right. Ruma said she has a question.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Okay. So, my question is having to do, of course, with the law of attraction. So, can I be? Is it okay if I be detailed, or like can I tell the situation, or is it up to me?
So, can you kind of be a little more specific with what you're trying to ask?
She's asking you if it's okay to be detailed.
Detailed. Yeah, I mean, as detailed as you need to be to get your point across. We don't necessarily
right
all the nuts and bolts, but it has to be detailed enough for us to assist you.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, it's. I would recommend looking. We had a really lengthy discussion about this in the comments on, I believe, last week's post about deliberate creation, which was posted on Friday, I think.
I think she means to talk to us.
About law of attraction.
Did you mean how detailed should you focus, or did you mean how much detail should you give us? I didn't know what you meant.
Should she give us?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, go on. You can give as much detail as you want to.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, so from my experience, and I think Brandon, I know when we had the intuitive,
yes.
I did an intuitive reading with you before,
Uh-huh.
and my second question was about like the career position.
Right.
And so that came about through the law of attraction.
Right.
And so I'm pretty much, to make a long story short, I'm pretty much like experiencing the same thing from from previous job experiences that I was hoping that wouldn't occur again, and it did.
Okay.
And so, but what I did recognize from it is that I know back in the past I would get so much caught up into it,
right.
like, oh my gosh, what did this happen? And I kind of get like down on myself. But this
right.
time around, I'm able to recognize it more. Like, okay, it's happening, but you also know that from previous experiences, X, Y, and Z. So, try your best to, focus on, I guess, either what you're currently doing or what you do want versus focus on that. So I can say I find myself more, aware of it.
Right. That's good.
So I'm trying to figure out, like, either there is something else there for me to get, or, it's there to bring something out of me, like for the better, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah.
Or it's a test, like to see like how you're gonna handle it this time around, like the third time around, and see how you if you learn anything from the last two times. So I'm trying to figure out like what I'm looking for, like any suggestions, opinions on the situation.
Okay. So basically, I'm just trying to recap. Christine, I don't know if you can understand better than I can, but basically what I'm getting is that you have some negative manifestations that keep recurring
from her previous job.
From your previous situations. Right.
Situations.
Right. Okay.
Right. So the actual position itself is a new position, and I like it, the position per se.
Right.
I did that. But I'm experiencing some of the same things from
same patterns.
Same patterns, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
All right. that clarifies things. Yeah, 1 second. Okay, so yeah, I'm sorry. I was just trying to understand what was going on. So that's actually very common when you have, similar situations where you have the same patterns going on, because basically, I mean, your subconscious mind is going to repeat the patterns that it has. So when you're pursuing similar goals and you haven't quite worked through a pattern, it's going to repeat that over and over and over and over and over and over again until you work through it, until you learn the lesson that's associated with it, until you acknowledge it and let it go, until you take responsibility for it. I mean, I've seen that in many people's lives. There are patterns that play out in, throughout several different situations. It's the same pattern. It's almost just like a different, the same archetype with different manifestations of it. So, yes, it's definitely about the lessons that you can learn from it. It's you just need to be more conscious and more aware and take responsibility for what's going on. So I would look back at those previous situations and ask yourself, what did you do before that maybe you could do better this time? What did you have the opportunity to work through before that you probably didn't as much as you could have or should have? And really be very honest with yourself. I know it's a little bit scary, but really be honest with yourself and ask yourself, what you can do to work through this pattern. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It makes a lot of sense. But my question is, when you say like take responsibility, what does that mean?
Okay. Basically, because a lot of people will have these patterns in life, and you ever talk to these people who have really bad lives and they say they play the victim, and to look at them, I mean, they look like, from what they are saying to you, they sound like they are the victim, right? You can't really blame them for that. They say, this happened to me, and this person did this to me. I'm not saying this is you. I'm just giving an example. This person did this to me, and that person did that to me, and everyone's always taking advantage of me, and, crying and whining about it. And so it's really easy for them to point to the other person or the other people because, they think it's someone else's fault. They don't want to take responsibility for that. It takes a lot of self-awareness, a lot of spiritual development to be able to say, no, this is one thing, I think Abraham says that I actually like, basically you take you with you wherever you go. What's the common denominator? You. Right? So when a lot of these things,
what's that? Kind of harsh.
I'm sorry?
Well, in a way, I said in a way that's kind
harsh.
Of harsh, or hard to kind of, like you take.
Yeah, it is harsh.
Basically, regardless, it's you.
It's you, right?
It is harsh.
And were you going to say something, Justin? I thought I heard you speak.
It is harsh. I mean, that's the only way to, and it's not that you're somebody's.
It's not like your fault or something.
It's not like it's someone's. Like it's not legit. So I mean, somebody might really have some legit rights.
Exactly. Right.
So it's not that like they really may have been in bad situations and may have I don't know how this stuff happened. Sometimes it's their fault and sometimes it's not.
Right.
But it's always on you because you're the one that has to deal with it. So what you'd want to do is those patterns that are happening, you want to sit down each night and meditate and ask myself, okay, what's happening right now? This happened in the past. How is it similar? And do I want this or not? Or what part of it do I want? And if I don't, then I focus on the part I want and then I allow the other part to dissipate. Exactly. So you don't want to you're going to actually have to sit down and break it down bit by bit so that you can see exactly where your energy's stuck and what your subconscious is doing and ask yourself those questions. Okay, now this person said this to me, or this person sent an email, and this is what was in it. This happened on the last job. What did I do or could to cause it, or what could I have done better, or, okay, I choose to have this. Like, it has to be, you're going to have to slow down actually and break it down bit by bit. Right. That's just what has to happen, because those patterns are repeating. So you've got to take those patterns and find out what parts you want to keep, what parts you don't.
Exactly. Right. I'll give an example I've given several times. I don't know if you've been on the calls and I've given this example before. I don't think so. This is kind of a long time ago I talked about this. But my aunt, I have this aunt who, and she doesn't do it anymore. I think she worked through this pattern. But for years, I swear, she took several jobs, always in the, basically in restaurants, okay, in the service industry. And every restaurant, she would work there for a while, and you'd see the same pattern. The manager would take advantage of her. She'd get paid almost, basically almost nothing, not nearly enough. They'd give her more responsibilities than her job description called for, and they just take advantage. And she'd always come home and complain about how much people were taking advantage of her and how much she does for everyone. And she had a valid complaint. And this is where I say, you take you with you. You're the common denominator. She would move from job to job to job to job to job and have the exact same complaint at each place.
Which is totally legit.
Right. Each one was legitimate.
They did.
Right. But, she was the common denominator. She was the one with that vibration of, being taken advantage of, and the victim mentality where people were taking advantage of her and taking her for granted and not paying her enough. And she finally did work through that. Now where she works now, she's a lot happier. She had a little bit of that at first at this current job, and then she worked through it, I think, somehow. I don't even know what the catalyst was, but, that's a very common example where someone has several jobs where they have the same issues, different coworkers, same issues. And that's because the subconscious is going to work through that stuff no matter what. Go ahead.
And you're putting yourself in the exact same spot to have the exact same thing happen. And it's difficult for something different to happen if you don't realize it.
Right.
Because you're just going to be in a spot where you're just going to be in the way of a lot of duties, or you're going to basically stretch your stuff out so that those things happen. I don't even know how to, that's the best way to, you're just positioning yourself for it. Right. So you want to know how not to position yourself for it.
It's like
right, that's what I'm saying. So
right.
From my understanding, from the feedback that I've gotten, was to take some time every day just to sit, to work through it, like bit by bit, or break it down to see what it is that maybe
I did it.
That I'm actually,
right. Huh? He said he did it.
I did it.
Yeah, you basically, it's the same technique as any law of attraction stuff. It's just sitting down, visualizing or imagining your goal, seeing the pattern that comes up in your consciousness, and allowing yourself to work through it within yourself before it has to happen in the outside world. If you fear, and I don't know what your pattern is, I'm just giving examples. If you fear, let's say, not being valued, for example, for your work, then when that fear comes up in consciousness, you allow it to express itself, you let it go, you let that energy flow, and you give your focus to the reality you'd rather have, which is you start to imagine people valuing your work and respecting you and that kind of stuff. Whatever, again, replace it with the pattern that you are experiencing and what the solution to that is, what you'd rather be experiencing. So you just want to do that. You have to keep your focus on the reality you want to create, not on trying to prevent, and that's probably the most important thing. Don't try to prevent the thing you don't want. Don't try to get away from the negative. It's not going to work, obviously, right? So you always want to be focusing on creating what it is you do want by focusing on it and allowing those images to take the place of the unwanted ones. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And like listening to this, I can truly say, or I can recognize within myself that I must be, or the subconscious part, I must be really in deep
Right.
with the situation.
What do you mean by that? Like it's deep in your subconscious?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Like
can
it must
be.
be just dreaded with.
Yeah, it can be hard, especially when, it's good that you're aware of it. That's half the battle, really. But, it's just, you have to work through it. And it takes time sometimes. And it's almost, it's funny, sort of, because, like, they say, like, the purpose of reincarnation is so we have the opportunity to experience the lessons we need to experience. But even within the same incarnation, I find we have several opportunities usually to learn the lesson we have to learn, because no matter what situation you're in, it's going to be brought up again and again and again and again and again. And so you have endless opportunities. Don't be too hard on yourself. You have endless opportunities to get this right. But at the same time, the faster you do this, the faster it's over with. So, and you can move on and create what you want to create.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it's just a matter of persistence. I've talked about persistence before, and being persistent with your will, and focusing on the thing you want to create, like I said, and not allowing anything else to get in the way of that.
Okay.
Really, I mean, persistence is where it's all at, holding that inner vision and not allowing anything else to get in the way. So does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Feel free to follow up if you sound hesitant.
And I was just gonna read something that I think I saw it on one of your blogs.
Yeah.
And it made sense. I feel like I could apply it to my situation, but I wanted to get, clarify with you, the meaning behind it, if that's okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Please. Anything goes.
So
I'm sorry.
okay, here's it. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem.
It's so it says little. Okay. Never mind. I can't because I have to scroll through this. Fine. Never mind. We can skip it.
Well, you can. While we're talking, you can sort of try to find it. Do you have an idea of what kind of thing it was related to? Or
yeah, it was something related to if you focus. It was something about you were saying. I can't remember. I have to.
Okay.
I'll find it. You guys can.
Yeah, we'll keep talking, and why don't you try to find it and just, in an opportune place, just sort of, insert yourself. So, yeah, definitely. And we're here for, an hour and a half. So, but yeah, it's definitely a good topic though. About, like I said, holding your vision is so important, because persistence is really, I think, the name of the game. It's so essential to be able to hold your vision no matter what happens. I think a lot of people get overwhelmed by overwhelmed with resistance and things like that, and it's just so important to be able to be persistent, to hold out with the goal no matter what happens. And that's really what causes things to move. We had a big long discussion, Justin, the other day about in the blog about what was it, the will and moving energy, and how emotions and will move energy versus just being passive. In fact, I'm writing I haven't started yet, but I'm going to have a post this probably Thursday
What
or
if I
Friday.
saw that and commented a couple of times? I'm
Did
not
you?
sure.
We had a few really interesting comment threads. You should look at them. But I'm gonna the post this.
Okay.
Do you have it?
Do you want to finish your
Yeah, I
thought?
have it.
No, because I was transitioning. Go ahead.
Okay, so part of it says, but keep in mind if your it's about subconscious structure. So keep in mind if your subconscious structure needs to be changed, it is by definition a next level goal.
Right.
If your current structures can't comfortably produce your goal, then it is not a current level goal.
Correct.
And then it says that element was what I would call only. Hold on. Yeah, that element was what I could only call it is tension.
Right.
And it
Oh,
said something about there was this force pulling me forward to my goal because I refused to compromise on my vision of what I wanted. That creative tension wasn't resolved until the vision was achieved.
Right.
So what does that actually mean?
Why don't you tell me what you get out of it, and then we'll proceed from there.
Okay.
Just so I have a starting point, you know.
Okay. So what I got out of it was, so you're in a situation like you, like for example me, like I might have manifested a certain career position that I wanted, and I envision myself a certain way at this position, but once I get there, it's not going the way that I thought it would go or how I envision it.
Okay.
But because I'm so, I guess not, because I'm so focused on having it the way that I vision it, it created tension, but eventually the tension went away because you were so persistent in creating a vision that you saw.
Uh-huh.
That's
So,
what I got out of it.
Okay, so say the last part again. So, because of your persistence, what happens?
Because you were so persistent at creating the vision that you wanted, all of the tension, eventually went away.
Went away to what effect? That's the important part.
Went away like the part, I guess the tension part would be the part of it not going the way that you thought it was gonna be.
So
because you were so focused on creating it to be the vision that you saw, that part eventually went away.
Right. Okay. And so what happens?
So what you didn't want went away, and what you did want eventually came.
Okay. This is a really broad subject, so I'm going to need you to, as I'm speaking, please narrow down what your confusion is about, because I don't want to give a dissertation about the topic when I have a blog post on it. So as I'm speaking, redirect me to where your confusion specifically is, if you don't mind. But basically, go ahead.
Okay, so my confusion was about the tension part,
Right. So yeah, the tension, and that's, I'm going to be talking, what I was going to say earlier, I'm going to be talking this Friday probably about creation versus attraction. And we'll talk about this a little bit later too. But
creation versus attraction?
Yes. Because I've been getting a lot of questions, and it's been coming up in my kind of...
I was wondering when I know the difference.
Yeah. We'll discuss that a little bit. I really want to get there.
Can I jump in? You should,
Go ahead.
You should be able to create exactly what you want, and if you didn't, you made a mistake.
Right. Well, let's talk about the tension first.
I wouldn't be, that harsh, but yeah.
Well, or your vision was not
right.
Well,
okay. So, we're going to talk about the creation.
It wasn't what I know. Is that what you said, Chris?
Go ahead, Christine.
No, just that if you didn't create what you wanted, your shortcomings came out instead.
Right.
So you should always be able to create what you want.
Right.
But he'll explain it better.
Okay, so That remind me of this topic because I want to talk about something related to this later, and I'm afraid of forgetting. I don't want to type it down. Okay.
You should type it down because I'm not going to know what it is.
That's true. Let's type it down.
What do you want me to remember? What do you want me to remember?
Okay. Someone remind me before the end of this call to discuss the highest good.
Okay.
That will remind me.
Okay.
That keyword.
Okay, the highest good. You could have just said that.
That keyword will remind me of what I want to discuss because that has been.
That's what you needed to say.
Okay.
I've always tried to avoid that. But yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
So go ahead.
Answering your question, tension. The reason I mentioned creation versus attraction, which we'll discuss later on more if we have time, which I'm sure we will. But the reason I discuss this is because, look, we have this weird, like I said, we have magic for millennia, right? We've had magic around since basically the beginning of civilization, probably before. As long as people have had the idea of trying to manipulate results, trying to pray to the gods, or trying to do certain rituals to have a better hunt or whatever. That's in magic, right? No matter what we call it, prayer or magic or witchcraft or anything, it's magic. And so that's been around forever. And as I've said before, we the last century and a half or so, since the late 19th century, we've suddenly started calling it, at least in this certain subculture, we started calling it the law of attraction. And we have these certain ideas around it. And honestly, not to be really harsh, but a lot of them are stupid.
And that's harsh.
And it's harsh. I can't help it. But a lot of them are totally wrong. Okay? Just a lot of them. And a lot of the people behind it are, if you look at, I was on the Law of Attraction subreddit, and someone was talking about The Secret and how several of the people from The Secret are frauds, confirmed frauds. And that's true. And that can discredit the Law of Attraction a lot. And, it's just, that's, sorry, no, it's fine. That's too bad, unfortunately. Even Napoleon Hill has a lot of stuff going on with him that is probably not in the up and up. So, it has sort of a shady history. And what I'm trying to say is, it's just, there's so many concepts out there that you really have to be careful with. And one of those concepts is that you should always feel good. Okay, that's one of those concepts that has to go. So tension is one of those things, as law of attraction practitioners, we tend to avoid like the plague, right? Tension is bad. Tension means that we have resistance and that, we're focusing on the wrong thing and whatnot. But it doesn't. Tension is a natural part of the creative process. And this is what I try to discuss in this post. What tension means is a few things. I'm sorry?
It's an opponent.
Right. Tension
is great.
Tension means, first of all, I love tension. It feels really good
it's like a stretch.
To work through that tension.
Yeah.
Tension means that there is a gap between where you are and where you want to be, and that you recognize that gap. And that's really important. Let me repeat that. Tension means that there is a gap between where you are and where you want to be, and that you recognize that gap. Because a lot of people will have a gap between where they are and where they want to be, but they will not recognize that gap because either, number one, they refuse to actually choose the goal, and so they're really passive about it, and so they don't really create that gap, and so they never move. Or number two, they will sugarcoat current reality and not allow that gap to form, and so they will stay where they are. Okay, they will pretend, my current reality is great, I love it, everything's great about it, I'm abundant, blah, blah, blah. And none of it's true, right? We very well known in the law of attraction community for faking it. And I'm not a proponent for faking it, except in very specific situations like journaling and stuff like that. But that's another discussion. But so the tension is absolutely essential for the creation. Again, this is for next level goals. I want to mention very quickly the creation process for current level goals, for next level goals, and ultimate level goals are very, very different, almost completely different. There are common elements, but they are very different. And most of the techniques you see out there are for current level goals. I've had clients before who have, said basically, said, I have success with this, I have success with this and with this. I can't do the same technique with this other thing. It just won't work. And I say, that's because you're trying to approach it in the same way as these other things that are easy to you. You can't, because this is a current level goal, which is easy, and that's the next level goal, right? So, just turn this down. Okay, so I'm trying to keep my outline as I go so I don't lose our place. Anyway, so the tension is for next level goals and ultimate level goals too, but in a different way. But the tension is especially for next level goals. Next level goals are those goals, as you said, which the subconscious structures do not currently support. Okay, so it's something that like I said, there's a gap. There's a gap between where you are and where you want to be. And that tension is that unresolved, stretch, the unresolved tension, which must resolve in one of two ways, because all tension must come to resolution. The tension will resolve either in you dropping the goal because it's too hard, or in you achieving the goal. This is why I say about persistence. Persistence is very important for that reason. Tension will result in either you achieving the goal or you dropping the goal. So when you hold that tension in mind, when you recognize that gap, and when you feel it, and when you choose the goal anyway, despite the tension, you're signaling your subconscious mind, hey, this is more important to me than any of that other stuff that you hold on to that you think is true, which isn't. Okay, your limiting beliefs and so on. So, you're telling your subconscious mind, this is what I want. You need to find a way to bridge that gap. And I'm just going to stay over here until you do that, essentially, right? So that tension is an absolutely vital part of the creation process when it comes to next level goals. Does that make sense?
Okay. It makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Because, yeah, it makes a lot of sense because that actually happened to me today.
Yeah.
Or I had those same feelings of what you were saying, like either you make the choice of like quitting the goal, or you make the choice of like achieving it.
Exactly.
So like both of those thoughts came to me today.
If it doesn't feel as though the goal is requiring something out of you, you're not doing it right. I've said that before. The goal requires something from you. It demands. I'm going to say it demands something from you. There's an awesome. Again, we have this new commenter, and I will call them out by. I don't know the real name. So I just know the pseudonym. This commenter that goes by R, and we've been having this amazing discussion. And this girl, I think it's a girl. But she has, thanks to our discussion, an amazing grasp on how this stuff works. I really recommend those discussion threads on the
she's phenomenal.
Recent posts. I know.
Laura is phenomenal.
I know. And she's
again? I'm sorry.
Her she goes by R, just the letter R. So look through the recent comments and look for R.
Oh.
But our discussion threads.
In which posts?
In any of the recent LOA posts, especially like the deliberate creation post from last week, and some of the other recent ones.
Deliberate creation. You're doing that this week.
No, it was last week.
Oh.
Being a deliberate creator of your life.
Oh, that one. Okay.
But anyway, she has a really awesome grasp on how all this works, and she's been saying, even just a couple weeks ago, my goal felt really impossible, really, really out of reach. And now just from, following these techniques and really choosing it every day and visualizing, it feels a lot more attainable. And I said, well, that's because your subconscious structures are changing. But there was that tension where she said, it's really hard, and they have to find that balance between moving too fast and too far at once and being overwhelmed by the resistance, and not moving fast enough and not moving enough energy to actually close that gap. And that's a definite struggle, trying to find the balance between, moving too fast and being overwhelmed, and moving too slow and getting bored and not really moving energy towards your goal, right? It requires a balance, definitely. You don't want to go too fast. But anyway, she has really, I think anyone who reads those discussions, you'll get a lot out of it, because there's definitely a lot of clarification there that we've been able to get through. So, but the tension, and I've worked with this method with many different people, both clients and in the comments, in the blog posts. But I've seen in every single situation that you really, really need that sense of tension, that sense of unresolved tension, because that's what's going to drive you forward to achieve your goal. Nothing else. It's the combination of will, focus, and emotion, because unless you choose your goal, right? Unless you choose your goal, you don't have the momentum you need. You don't have that tension. That's what forms the tension, is the will, that choice. So unless you choose the goal, you just don't have the momentum you need to really close that gap. You need to choose. You need to use your will. That's what we're talking about this week, about creation versus attraction. You need to use your will to choose the goal for it to actually move, for it to actually happen. So that's where the tension comes from. Because if I look at my current reality, I say, all right, this is what I have now. And despite this being what I have now, I choose deliberately with my will, which will is a very powerful thing. I choose to have this other thing that I don't yet have. Well, that sets up a conflict. That sets up a tension. It says, okay, I have this. I want that. I don't have it yet. You don't lie to yourself and say, oh, actually, in some mystical way, I do have it. No, you don't have it. You don't have it. And that's okay. But in your mind, you get there every single day for 5 minutes or so a day. You get there to that place where you do have it, and you think positively about it. You feel good about it. And, through doing all that, you let all the resistance come up and you release the resistance. Your reality will morph and shift and shape itself to conform to your vision of what you want. And that's basically how all this stuff works. So that's where the tension comes in. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. So are you also saying, like, it's okay to have those feelings of what you do want? Like, let's say you're doing, like he was saying, like meditating or you do like 5 minutes when you're visioning the things the way that you want it. It's okay to have those feelings then.
Oh yeah, you need the positive feelings. You need the positive feelings within your visualizations. Here's what I'm saying. The positive feelings don't have to be at an absolute bouncing off the wall level of happy. It doesn't have to. I've told people before, I rarely go above a 3 or 4 out of 10 in intensity of emotion.
You want to just be focused,
right?
Solid.
It really. I was doing some accidental automatic writing last night, Justin. I was talking to my deities, and again, it was totally accidental. I asked because I was writing an outline for my not an outline. I was writing down some thoughts, some notes from my post this week, and sort of asked a question that an objection someone might have, and then as I wrote the question, just words started coming. I'm like, oh, okay, I know what this is. But one of the big things that he said, was that that it takes a very light movement of will to make something happen. If there's no resistance, it takes a very, very, very small movement of will to change reality. Very small. It's just when you have that resistance, and that's where all this other stuff comes in. So you don't have to have these really big, powerful emotions, and it doesn't have to be all day long. You don't always have to be in this vortex state or something. It doesn't have to be all that. It just has to be few minutes a day in your visualizations. I mean, yes, you should, in general, stay out of the negative states as best you can, but staying neutral or slightly positive is fine. You don't have to stay in this super joyful place all day. That's not normal. That's not what's expected. So, you want to have those positive emotions, but you want to use them as a tool, not try to use them all day long. Okay.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And do you have any other?
So what about So I was going to ask next, like, so what about? Because I feel good about the fact that I was able to create, or I guess manifest the actual career position that I wanted, that allowed me to do what it is that I wanted to do.
Right.
So listening to what you're saying, I can take the feedback that I must have had either, no resistance towards it, and it was something that I really, really wanted, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Could have been. It could have been.
So I feel.
Go on.
I mean, if you could have had a lot of resistance or no resistance, you could have had that much force and got what you wanted. I mean, like the energy just meets in the middle. So there's a certain point when you're just going to get it. But what you might have to do is tweak it some. So you got partially what you wanted. In fact, you got your job, but you just may have to base it out some and tweak it some.
Right. It sounds like you're close. I mean, it sounds like you got a lot of what you wanted without too much resistance, but you have these little debugging things to get through.
It's not perfect. It's art and science. So that's why it's 1 to 3 months is what is kind of a basic basic time period. So you should just be able to debug it and get it.
Right.
And it's not they come how they come. Sometimes they come a little bit at a time. Sometimes they come like a home run, all at once.
Yeah.
So it sometimes when you create something, you get exactly what you want, but you realize that for the context and for what you are going for in that context, you may have to change it or tweak it a little bit because you didn't quite see everything. Right. So that's all. You got a good bit of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It'll take you a little bit to get it exactly the way, and then you have to kind of mess with it as you go. Because remember, your job might change in 8 months. That means you actually have to change your manifestation some. It has to change along with it a little bit.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like you got a lot of it, but you still have a little bit, of debugging to do, which is normal, and that's it's perfectly fine. Any other questions around that?
No.
Okay. So I will shift into my topic.
The highest good?
The highest good, yes.
Highest good.
You didn't even need us to remind you.
No, I just wanted to fail safe in case,
I've always tried to avoid the highest good stuff.
Well, yeah, in your affirmations. I mean, what I mean is, what I mean by it...
You have a perfect example.
I do, yes. Christine knows where I'm going. That's why she's married me.
I'm sure Justin...
Yeah.
Not really.
So
I just can read.
What I mean by
telepathy.
this is that, actually, let me write this in my outline first. There are certain situations, where you may have a desire. We've been talking a lot about free will in the comments lately also. And people seem to not be able to grasp the idea that if you have free will, it doesn't mean that you can choose absolutely anything.
Like unicorns?
Well, yeah.
I'm just kidding. But that was a joke.
No, I know. No, but also that,
Or like kill somebody.
Like someone, well, yes, but someone said like, well, if, if you're born into this world and, you choose suffering for yourself for, as a child or as, in your life at some point, doesn't that violate your free will? No, not really, because, you have the means to get out of that. You're not stuck there. But also, can you create absolutely anything? In theory, yes.
Well,
huh?
It just depends on you.
Well, here's what I want to. Okay, so here's the thing happens with me. It's kind of a cycle. I was talking to my deities.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Go back. In theory, yes. In practicality,
in practice, no.
Yeah.
Right. I was talking to my deities last week. I work with, especially for like magic and manifesting. I talk to Hades a lot. He's been invaluable for helping me with learning, the ins and outs of this stuff. Seriously. So I was saying, well, I feel like I have a pretty good grasp of the stuff you've taught me. What's next? I should never ask what's next.
Especially to Hades.
Especially Hades. What's the next level?
Next? Well, then, young one.
So
I picture him with a deep voice.
So, exactly, I know. I picture the earth rumbling and the big earthquake. Anyway, so I said, what's next? I want the next level because I feel like there's this pattern in my blog where like I have a breakthrough and then I have tons of content for a while and then I start to run low because I'm like, okay, what else am I going to say? And then I have another breakthrough and then I have tons of content for a while and then I start to run low and so on and so forth. So I'm like, I got the last breakthrough, last several about like the subconscious structures and the different levels of goals and stuff like that. What's the next thing? Because, where am I going to go next with this stuff? So 2 things came up. I thought it was only 1, and then I got 2. So, and I want to cover both of those today, if we can. I'll check what time it is. I think we still have a lot of time. Oh, yeah, I have tons of time. Okay. So the first thing was a nice little event that happened last week where I was really, really, really trying to manifest this awesome podcast we were going to do. Justin knows a thing or two about that one.
Oh, you are going. Okay. I was like, hey, okay.
Yeah. So, okay. So, basically, let me just describe, because I like to describe my own examples so that we can jump off of that.
And plus, not everyone knows.
Right. So, I figure, look.
This is funny.
I want to talk about star seeds because we're talking about past, afterlives, and then we talk about your past lives, and then someone asked a question, and I mentioned star seeds, and then I'm like, oh, maybe I should mention that in a future podcast. And someone said, oh yeah, that'd be awesome. You should mention that. I said, okay, I'll mention it. Okay. And then I sort of start panicking. I think to myself, wait, I know nothing about star seeds. Almost nothing.
Which is shocking because you know everything else.
Well, I know a little bit.
I had some limited knowledge.
Right. I know what they are.
Yeah.
But I don't even know. Honestly, I'm not even totally convinced if they exist or not. It's a concept that some guy created in 1976. I don't know if they exist. It could be a weird, just like indigo children. I don't know if indigo children exist. There's a pretty convincing argument, but it could also be, I don't know. You know what I mean? So you just don't know. And I don't know if I was confident enough to really go there. So, but I'm like, well, okay. I don't know about them too much. What if I go out and search for guests who think of themselves as star seeds and we talk to them about it? Okay, so I do that. I post around on some different places and I say I'm doing a podcast on star seeds and would you like to talk about your experience? If so, message me and, we can come on our podcast and talk about it. Immediately I get 2 hits and later on I got a 3rd after the fact, of course.
Oh, so, you did?
Yeah. So I get two responses and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I can get 2 people on here. And, well, we want to record, what was it, Wednesday? I think Wednesday night. And the one guy gets back to me, oh, sorry, I forgot my computer somewhere. I can't do it. The other guy, silence. Never gets back to me. Oh, that's weird. All right, well, we'll try again tomorrow. It's okay. So next day, the other guy messaged me in the morning and says, I'm so sorry about last night. I don't even know what his excuse was. Can we try it again? But I want at least 2 people because I don't want it to be an interview. I want it to be a discussion. He actually said Discord. I'm pretty sure he meant Discourse. I don't think he wants Discord. Discord.
That man wanted Discord. Star Steeds are crazy.
Brendan, it was actually Thursday though and Friday.
Oh, you're right. Thursday and Friday. Okay, so Thursday.
Wednesday I was gone.
That's right. It was not Wednesday. It was Thursday the first day, and then Friday. I'm trying to figure this out.
I know it's semantics, but
no, it's okay.
It's OCD.
So Friday he gets back to me and says that. I said, all right, I'll find someone else. He said, do you want me to look for other people? I have friends who might be interested. I said, sure. And then I send an email out to the mailing list and say, is anyone interested? I have another person, but we want a second. And it's going to have to be today, so, hop to it. And I get a response. Someone says, yeah, I'm willing to talk about it. All right, cool. And, so comical things happen. The first guy never gets back to me again. I mean, total silence again. After he says he's going to do it, and I tell him we have a second person, and he just doesn't get back to me. I'm like, what's going on? I'm sorry.
Discord.
He wanted Discord. Right?
That's what he got. That's what he did.
He got Discord. And then, so then Justin and I and Christine and this other person who agreed to it come on to the podcast, to the software, and just absolute mayhem. I mean, first of all, we can't hear Justin, and then somehow,
first he had trouble connecting.
Yeah, we can't get Justin on, and then we get Justin finally on, and then
we can't hear him.
And then once he actually gets on, and then I reconnect, and then one of them can't hear me, and I can't hear the other person. But then I think, let's see.
So first, Justin could only be heard by this person.
Yeah.
And not us.
Right.
Then, was it you couldn't?
Then I could hear one of them, but not the other, and that other person couldn't hear me. And we could not get all 3 of us. And then we finally got all 3 of us on, and I muted our guest because I wanted to introduce her and then bring her on. And then, but once I unmuted her, just could hear her. I could not, and she couldn't hear me. So I reconnect, and then I can hear her, but not Justin, and Justin can't hear me. So I'm like, all right.
That
so
sounds like what happened to me.
So finally I said, okay, look, Justin, I got her on the line. Christine and I will just do the interview. So Justin disconnects, because then he can't be heard by anyone anymore. So he disconnects. He disconnects.
You had to kick him.
And then I say, okay, I'm sorry about this. It's like 9:30 at this point at night. I said, I'm really sorry about this. I said, are you ready to? She's like, well, I guess, but I sort of thought there would be someone else. I wish I would have known. I'm like, I'm sorry. I said, are you really sure you're ready? She's like, yeah. And I could feel the energy. She's like, I'm like, are you sure? Yeah.
But only for 30 minutes.
Are you really? Yeah. Are you really doubly sure? Yes, I'm sure. No, you're not. So I say, look, I appreciate it. This is not working. The gods are obviously against this thing.
I told you to stop.
Yeah, well, I was feeling it too. And so I said, well, this is not going to work out. So no podcast last weekend for that reason. My point in that big, long story, I'm sorry. I hope it was entertaining though. But my point in all that, and I mean, it was no one's fault at all. It was a mix of miscommunication from these other people to the software not working, and I contacted support and they're like confused. They're like, I don't know why that would have happened. So,
they did.
Yeah, but they're willing to test it out with me. I'm like, well, it has to be more than 2 people because that's the only time it happens.
So it wasn't me that couldn't get on. That was not a.
I don't know. I don't see how.
I think the gods did it, to be honest.
So I said, all right. Obviously, Hecate is my goddess for psychic stuff. metaphysical stuff. I said, obviously, Hecate just did not want me to do this topic. Why? I don't know why. And I'm manifesting the whole time. I'm like, okay, I know not to focus on the problems. I know to focus on what I want. I want a good podcast that's going to really help people with this stuff and really cover this topic. And I really do feel good about it. I do all the stuff I normally do that gets really good results and get nothing. I'm thinking, what? So, I had a bit of a talk with her, and then I asked Justin to kind of mediate for me because it's hard when you're really emotionally invested. So Justin helped me out a bit, right, Justin?
Yep.
And basically came down to just wasn't time, It wasn't not the right place, not the right time.
Yeah.
So the point of all that is I wanted it. I was going to create it. I was blocked.
Yeah,
Why?
It happens.
Why was I blocked? Because it wasn't the highest good. Because it wasn't what the gods wanted. I'm sorry, and people are going to really hate this concept. And this will be a blog post. This was going to be this week's blog post, but then the creation versus attraction kind of took precedent. But
next week.
Yeah, next week. So, the gods didn't want it. And there's not much you can do about that.
Well, and also people have to understand, if you choose to follow a certain spiritual faith group,
right.
set, whatever you call it, pantheon.
Right. They're responsible for you.
So you're beholden in some way. If they're going to trade knowledge, gifts, abilities with you, you got to go with what they say sometimes.
Right.
Really.
Right.
If they want.
And this is the other thing about law of attraction people. They don't like authority too much. Why do they want to follow a deity? But here's the thing. Deity is, and I talk about this in the psychic course a little bit. It's like networking. Deities can tell you a lot that you
whole lot
wouldn't be able to learn in lifetimes. I mean, the amount I've learned about magic and creation, I don't even know if I want to call it law of attraction. The amount I've learned about magic and creation ever since I started working with Hades is phenomenal. I've been led to the right books I need to read. I've been led to the right resources. Random thoughts have popped in my head that have just fit the pieces together. And I've gotten the results that say this is all true. It's not just random stuff that doesn't work. It works.
The angels and saints are amazing.
Right. Justin works with those. So, I'm pagan. What do you consider yourself, Justin?
Follower of the way.
Follower of the way. So
I like that, actually.
Which is the earliest church.
Yeah, it is.
Like the Christ churches.
Yeah. So, look, sometimes they just say no.
Yeah.
And that's, again, we want to hear you can create anything at all that you want to create. But that's not always true. But it's not really a bad thing because I suspect if I pushed, and I could have pushed forward probably, but it would be really, really bad. I know it would. I can feel the flow of the energy. I knew it would be really, really bad if I pushed forward. But it's for the highest good. It's for your own highest good. It's not really going to turn out how you wanted it to if you push through anyway. So, can you create anything? Again, theoretically, yes. But the powers that be can step in and kind of say, not so much, right? And again, I'm sorry, I know that's sort of not what people want to hear so much, but it's true. Right? So that was one of my next level things that, Hades kind of pointed out. And, it's a lesson I need to learn too. And I'm like, okay, well, can't always do everything, that's okay. And then, I wrote the astrology. I don't know if either of you see the astrology post yesterday.
I need to read it.
I sat down to wrote that wrote. Okay, start over. I sat down to write that astrology post yesterday. It flowed out like it was just waiting to be let out. It just flowed out. like, that's good. This is meant to be written, So I felt like I had some divine support there. 'Cause I sat down. I don't know what that was. I sat down and I'm like, how much can I really say about the Saturn return? Like, I can imagine maybe 500 words. Okay, so the Saturn return is really tough, and it happens every 29 years, and you really you can't avoid it. You really watch out for it, and I'm sorry if you're going through it, the end. I mean, what else can you say about it, right?
Yeah, I've heard of that, actually.
The Saturn return. But I wrote a 2,300 word post, and, it was, it just was effortless. It just came. It just flowed through. So that's an example of something where it definitely was something that I was supposed to do, and it was very much backed up, by the universe or by the gods, or whatever you want to say. So that's my highest good rant. It's like
that's what you meant. Okay, I like that highest good.
Yeah, that highest good is good.
I don't like the other one.
Yeah, like trying to always say it for the highest good of all. Yeah, I don't do that either. I mean, you don't really have a choice if you especially if you follow a certain tradition.
Yeah.
But and that's why I really would follow some sort of tradition, because it's like going out on your own versus having a mentor. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And I know a lot of us don't like the authority thing. I haven't much either in the past, but if you find the right ones that work with you, it's not that bad.
It works.
But it's about you can go out on your own and learn everything from scratch. In programming, well, actually not just in programming and everything, but in programming, a lot of times there will be an existing library that will do the same thing that we want to do. And if someone ignores all that and does it from scratch, we say, why are you reinventing the wheel? Okay. You don't want to reinvent the wheel. It's already invented. So it's already done. You don't want to have to do all this from scratch. Right. So,
man, it's really tough to just do it all on your own.
It
you
is.
Got to keep you have to keep such a good eye on your energy. And
it is.
What I tell people before is energy is the best way to do stuff.
Right.
It's also the best. It is also the easiest to screw up.
It is.
Because if you don't have anything like candles, crystals, oils, a deity, a god, a goddess, someone to back you up, something or someone to back you up, you're going to just flag and, oh man, my energy's low. Oh, I'm in trouble.
Right, exactly. Well, and that's go ahead.
I have a comment. I'm sorry.
No,
I have
please.
a comment to that. So it's not all, in my opinion, I feel like it's not always the case, like going off of your energy. Because, like, for example, you could be in a bad mood or, about something, your energy could be bad. You'd be in a negative place. And then you're thinking about a certain situation, and because you're in a negative place, you view it as, okay, well, I'm not going to do that. Or you make a wrong decision when if you would have stuck with it, it could have been something totally different.
Mm-hmm. So what do you, where do you differ?
I don't understand.
I don't understand either.
Well, I'm saying, like, because I thought I heard Justin say that you should make decisions based off of your energy, where you are with your energy.
I guess I partially said that, but I didn't intend to. I meant more of it. Oh, go ahead, Christine.
He meant not that kind of energy. Energy like you use your energy, like spiritual magical, energy. Spiritual energy, not your moods.
Oh, okay.
Right, no.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not, okay, emotions are very, I don't want to say rudimentary. It's just not a very fine level of control. Yeah, thank you. Christine's on top of me for the outline. So emotions are, they're great, and that's what a lot of people focus on with doing law of attraction. But it's also why a lot of people get confused, because emotions are great as they are, but they're not as good as working directly with the energy. Okay, directly with the energy, it's like that low-level control that is harder, but also gives tons more control than just working with the emotions and tons more feedback, right? Most people work the emotions because they're not sensitive enough to work with the direct energy. Once you get really good at this stuff, you start working with the energy. But yes, you don't always go based off your mood. The mood really has little to do with the energy of a situation, right? To be able to work with the energy itself is so much more direct, than just working with the emotions. It's a totally different level of involvement. I'm trying to think of a suitable metaphor, but
I'm trying to figure out the difference, how to explain it too.
Yeah, I am. It's like, you know what it's like for me, and this is a really ridiculous metaphor. Have you ever tried to do a lot of things that require, fine levels of control, like motor control with, let's say, gloves on?
Yes.
And it's like, you feel so clunky, try to get your key out, try to put the key in the doorknob and try to.
I can't do it.
It just feels clunky. It's like, I just want to get right in there and actually do it, versus when you take them off and you just do it and your fingers are very good at that.
No matter how cold it is outside.
Right. That's what it's like for me. I know it's sort of a silly metaphor. That's the first thing I can think of.
Yeah.
The only other metaphor I can think of is programming, so I don't think you want
your
that.
emotions are a good indicator of the energy, but they're not exact.
They're not exact, right.
So it's like the energy beats you to the spot and your emotions have to catch up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good because they link together, and it's a good way to tell what's going on, but it's not that but if you can manipulate that energy, like feel the actual tension on the thrum, the actual spirit of whatever you're doing. So that's the energy I meant.
Exactly.
Was if that energy is low or if you're tired, the deity or whoever will protect you or keep you from going so low or still keep your manifestation going for you or protect you from another, like an entity or negative energy you don't want. Or if you didn't make a deal, or if you didn't hang out with if you don't work with any of the entities or gods or goddesses, you end up having to do it all on your own, which you can do. But then you really have to set some careful safeguards.
So that's back to what we were discussing before. These other entities, gods, goddesses, angels, saints, ascended masters, whatever you want to work with, I don't care. I'm pagan, so I work with the gods and goddesses. But they do really help you, like you said, Justin. They teach you, they watch out for you, they kind of keep bad things from you if you're kind of headed down a path that isn't so great or isn't for your highest good. It's a mentor is how I see it. Like I said, I've learned so much since starting work with my deities, and it's irreplaceable. There's just nothing you can substitute for that. It's just amazing what kind of knowledge you can gain. So that's it's something I recommend, working with some kind of tradition and working in that framework. And it's all the same thing, it's all the same principles, it's just different energies, so to speak. You know what I mean? So it's so, I don't know, I think it's very important. And I know a lot of people don't like to do that. When I started talking about gods and goddesses and stuff, I had a few people say, I'm just not into this. Probably won't read posts like this. I'm like, well, whatever. And I was self-conscious about that for a while, and sometimes I still am, because it's so different from the everyday, law of attraction stuff. And it's, it's kind of hard to talk about that. But I do think it's very important.
And when you say God, you're not saying, when you say God, or you're not saying like Jesus Christ, like that.
Well, whatever one you want to work with.
Well, whatever one you want to work with.
He's talking about Haiti and Hecate. It could be
those are mine.
Orishas. It could be the Lucretius, the Egyptian pantheon.
Krishna, Buddha.
Yeah.
Vishnu.
Krishna,
Jesus.
Vishnu, whatever you want to work
they're all the same. And I'm not Christian. I've said before, very definitively, I'm not Christian. That's not my, for lack of a better word, pantheon, because Christianity doesn't.
Not his thing.
Right.
That's more mine.
It's more Christine's thing. But none, I will say this very emphatically, none are more powerful than another.
And I guess that's mine too, sort of.
Right, that's Justin's thing. None are more powerful than another. They all have their place. And they all have their adherents, their followers, their people, that work in that tradition. And like I said, I'm a pagan, so that's what I work with, different pantheons. Well, Greek mostly for me. But, it can be anything, though. Some people might just work with their higher self or their spirit guides. I do suggest a higher level than that, because spirit guides are sort of limited,
Yeah, they are.
Spirit guides can't do as much as, say, a deity or an angel or ascended master or something. But, you just have to find that for yourself and discover, like, okay, who do I want to work with? And that's totally your choice. But they will, and you know what I find? It's such a different relationship than what, like, a lot of, say, traditionally religious people would describe as a relationship with God, because you're,
right.
For me anyway, and Justin, I'm sure you're the same. I'm talking to them a lot, quite frequently, either through meditation or just in everyday life, and I'm getting answers, very real answers. I'm getting signs all the time, especially for me, a lot of repeating numbers. I got tons of repeating numbers today. 1111. I literally got, what was the 2222 I got?
Your RSS thing.
Oh, I had 2,222 unread stories in my RSS reader. I'm very behind.
I mean, that's funny. I'm happy I'm getting the repeating numbers now, because, see, that's a sign for me.
Yeah.
I catch them. Stuff happened last week that I thought was a sign. It's a sign. I know it is.
Right. So that's a very big thing too. So, this is a very real relationship. It's not this one way. A lot of people, like, they'll pray every day and what don't get really a response.
When prayer really is a relationship.
Right.
It's not you pray, dear God, help me with such blah, 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 blah. It's, God, I really like this flower today. It's so pretty.
Or
and if you do say,
to listen.
Right, you have to listen. If you do say, I really need some help with whatever. Sorry, 1 second. If you do say, I really want some help with whatever, you wait for them to answer. You don't just move on with your day. It's like calling up a friend. Hey, Bob, I would like some help with this. Thanks, bye. And don't even wait for an answer. It's like, okay. Don't know if I'm going to help. Anyway, go on, Ruma. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to add to that. I was going to say about the relationship. Like, so I guess you kind of already answered it, that if you ask a question, then you have to,
wait for the answer.
Wait for the answer.
And I've,
It could come in you can ask it to be in a formula recognized. You might hear immediate response. You might get a sign 2 or 3 days later. You might see something on a billboard, hear a commercial on TV, or a song on the radio. Right,
exactly. Like, for instance, with me...
Wait,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was referring to, like, because we were talking about relationships with God, I was referring to that.
Yeah, so are we.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you wait for, you get the...
You don't just pray and walk away.
Right. Even though that rhymes. Just kidding.
You don't say, dear God, or dear Lord, please such and such and such, amen, and
go about your
see
day.
You later. Like,
right, that's what I'm saying, like calling up a friend. Hey, Bob, can you help me with this? Goodbye. It's like, okay, I might have something to say back. Like, you know.
And even if you are busy doing stuff throughout the day, you like have an inner listening going on.
You can always. There's this wonderful book, and it's from a Catholic monk, basically, but it's Practicing the Presence of God by Brother Lawrence. Have you read that, Justin? It seems like a book you.
No, where is that?
I've told you about it before.
Yeah, you told me about it, and I couldn't find it.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's there.
It's on Amazon, but you don't.
And on Audible.
It's on Audible? Oh, you're right.
Audible. I gave up Audible.
Really? You should get it. But Practicing the Presence of God, it's this guy who's really, really simple, not really educated, but he's just always, always, always talking to God. You know, and that's like his big important thing. It's so awesome. But anyway, it's just, you know, always talking to the gods or whatever it is for you, you know, your form of divinity. I've talked about the importance of divinity before, but always talking to your form of divinity and getting their answers, and, you know, and being willing to, I mean, they'll test you. I've gotten tested many, many times. They'll sometimes say no when you try to do something. That's kind of their prerogative. They'll support you when they like what you're doing. Like I really feel like with my astrology post, it just flowed so well, and I was so nervous about it.
Katie felt bad for you.
Like, she felt bad. She's like, I'm sorry about the star seeds thing.
I'm sorry about you. I'll give you something that's close.
Yeah.
I'm a Haiti.
But,
I love that guy, man. Haiti is great.
Yeah, Hades. Awesome. But, you know, when I was talking to Hades about, you know, what's the next level, and then I got almost immediately that lesson about the highest good. I'm like, yeah, we could say no, you know.
Okay.
And then the next thing about creation versus attraction, which is the next level, I think. You know, I get near immediate answers, and it's nice to have that feedback.
It's not like you sit all day in silence waiting for answers. God. It's just you always have an awareness of, okay, look for the answers.
Right. You
don't just pray not expecting God to answer. And I don't know, Ruma, right? I don't want to mispronounce your name. If you're familiar with the Pentecostal faith, and I'm sorry, Brandon, I don't mean to traumatize you, but they talk about claiming things like when you pray. But you don't really, I'm not saying you have to go claiming all over the place, but the point is you will it when you pray. So you don't just say, okay, God, well, I don't know if I really believe you, but, you know, and I don't mean those words. I mean the emotion behind you praying. You have to have the will when you pray, expecting the answer. I don't mean to sound like prosperity gospel here or something, but
it's actually a good topic. Go on.
But you have to believe in what you're praying for, because it's not going to work if you don't.
Well, okay, here's my qualm with it. I'm sorry. Here's my qualm. It's a perspective difference. It's not necessarily that it's incorrect. So very rarely, I don't really pray for things, because look, I'm a creator, right? I have the right to create things. Why would I ask, can you give me this? And I'm telling you the truth, and Justin, you'll laugh at this. I think I said this before. When I ask Hades to help with something, he says, you do it. Doesn't help. So, you know, like, I don't pray for things because I know that I'm a creator. I think that's kind of what you're getting at anyway.
Well, and the thing is, for me, it's more of a formality thing, because I don't like to say, do this, do that, do the other.
But you don't have to tell God to do it, because you tell yourself to do it. You tell. I separate the universe. The universe to me is the raw, you know, energetic force behind everything. It doesn't really have.
But I see prayer as more of sort of like a spell type thing. So if it doesn't matter.
But anyway, you know, to me anyway, like when I create something, I don't ask the gods to bring it to me. What I will do with the most that I'll do is say, I'm sort of stuck. Can you help me to know what I need to do to get to this point? And they will help.
Right. So I feel like prayer. I'm sorry.
No, please.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, where prayer when you're in prayer, or you ask for pray or whatever, that can be viewed as the same thing. It's like, you know,
right.
It just depends on the person and how they go about, you know, praying or
right.
Asking, you know.
Mm-hmm. So the things I mostly pray about are, you know, advice about certain things. I'll ask about, again, what the next level of what I need to learn is. I'll ask about, how can I work through this resistance? How can I get to the goal that I want to get to? Not for, hand holding to get there, because my personal deities won't do that. They just won't. They won't do that for me.
But not all of them are like that.
No, but again, and see, this is a different perspective, and I'm sorry, this is just where I come from, is that you're a creator, so why ask someone else to do it for you? And that's just my perspective. I'm not saying that's the only perspective.
Yeah.
But that's where I come from, again, because I have very strong deities that kind of, instill that in me, so to speak, and that's just where I come from. But, you can pray, basically about anything, but, the things I pray for are for advice, for assistance, maybe a bit of help here or there, or, how can I work through this specific situation, right? And they will absolutely, I've come across books that I really needed to come across, like that the Parallel Worlds book was completely something I was led to. The even the Structural Tension book several months ago was something I was led to. I'll be led to the right resources, things like that. But it's everyone has a different relationship, so I'm not saying there's one right way. It's just I'm just describing how it works for me, and that you're a creator, so you get to choose, and that for me resolves the conflict between I can't tell God what to do. Well, no, you can't, but you can tell the universe what to do. You can create. You can tell the energy of the universe where to go. That's your prerogative.
Do it, and if God really doesn't want you to have it, you won't.
Then you won't. Right.
You don't want that.
Right. Right. So that's cool.
Yeah, you won't. I can't tell God what to do. Oh, trust me, you're not. You're not.
Right.
You can make requests, though.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And for me, it's I'm a creator, but I blend. I do. Oh man, what do I do? All kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Meditation every day, more than once a day. Communing, even just like doing work at work, I'll be commuting sometimes.
Yeah.
And I pray a good bit, but I more pray by asking and aligning, and then I might call on psalms. I just do all kinds of stuff, whatever I feel right then.
Right.
I use several different ways to connect. Sometimes one way just feels better than the other.
Yeah, it just depends on the person. So that's definitely good. So we didn't get to the creation versus attraction thing, unfortunately. It's 10 o'clock here, almost. Let's see your time.
Yeah.
I like praying from on high. I don't know why.
Yeah.
You like what?
Praying from on high. It feels like it's more neutral, and you can control it. Sometimes I'll pull it up from the earth.
Right. Yeah. But, remember, I come from a sort of more ceremonial magic background, too, where ceremonial magicians are very bold.
But you can be bold when you pray. It's not, and I'm not trying to argue with you.
But again, it's just all different perspectives. Just for me and the gods I work with, they don't respect people.
Yeah, it depends on the energy of your
directly
tradition.
Ask. If I directly ask Hades, can you do this for me? That's weak to him. He's told me that directly. So again, you have to see what your relationship with your gods or divine entities are.
And for me, it's
what your relationship is like, and it's going to be different for everyone.
Depends on how much you want it. Is how much the archangels and saints will help you.
Right.
If you just if you don't want it that much, they might deliver, they might not.
Now, I like what you're saying, Justin, because you're saying from what I'm understanding, you take the initiative.
Oh yeah.
But you ask for their help. That's sort of how I describe it too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to do this. Can you help me out? It's like, I see it's sort of like learning to drive. Like you're in the driver's seat, but you have someone with you. It's sort of, if you do the wrong thing, you might want to put on the brakes, or you might want to, do whatever. That's sort of how I see it, versus telling them to drive you somewhere. And
I've also been caught in mistakes. I'm not gonna, my team has actually, I've learned to go behind them more because I was going to do stuff and it would have been just major mistakes. And over the years, I've learned like to accept. That's why I'm an initiative, and then I go, all right, guys, let's go.
Yeah.
You guys ahead.
Right, exactly. But it sounds like you take the initiative.
Oh yeah.
And you ask for guidance throughout the process, which I respect that.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to take the initiative, and it's, again, I differentiate gods versus universe. The universe to me is the, I don't want to say mechanical, but you know what I mean. The forces at play, the law of attraction, the other laws at play that will react to your will. That's the universe. The gods you can't command.
No.
The universe you can command. You can tell the energies where to move. But
it's like splashing water in the pool.
Right. The gods you can't really do that with. I mean, that's how I resolve that conflict. So that's a great discussion. Any other questions?
Oh, I have one more.
Yeah, please.
But I don't think it's on the line of what we were talking about. But
okay.
I've had several readings done before.
Okay.
And like every last one of them showed something about like romance or relationship or something like that, but it never, like, I could never see it. Like I could never see it happening. Like it never happened.
So you're saying you've had readings
or like,
about...
for example, my energy isn't directed in that area.
Okay.
But whenever I would have like a reading done or something, it will pop up.
So you've had readings that have said something would happen, but it hasn't happened.
Mm-hmm.
Said the relationship would happen,
but it's not.
It would depend on their timeline. Also, maybe.
There? Did we get disconnected? Wait a second.
What happened, Brandon?
I got were you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
I got disconnected.
Can you hear us, Ruma?
Yes.
Okay.
Could have just been, maybe depends on the timeline. That's a possibility. Like there may have been potential relationships, but did you choose them directly?
Right.
You didn't choose them.
It might have been a near miss.
Yeah, it may have been a near miss.
Right.
The one thing readers don't tell you to do is to choose. They just sort of give you a reading, and then you just walk straight ahead. And it's like, there's a guy over there that wants to meet you, but if you walk past him, you didn't meet him.
Right. So the energy might have changed. You might have it might not be time yet. Who knows? Unless they give you a timeline, which is always very hard in readings. But it just might not be time yet, or you might have changed your timeline to something else where that relationship hasn't happened yet, which it doesn't mean it's hopeless. It just means it hasn't happened yet. You know what I mean? So readers can only give you the most probable to them. And some are biased, so you have to take that into account. And they can only tell you what the most probable is. It might be something that was so close that easily could have changed for you. Especially if you're doing active work on that part of your life. You may have done some work that changed in a way that didn't happen in the way that you wanted it to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. So it's more of just like I guess kind of like, and I think we said this, or you told me this before. It's more of like a guide of where you possibly are, or direction that you're going.
Right. Yeah, it's just, there are many, many times, there are infinite timelines, and it's hard to tell which one is probably going to happen. It's, even if they can, it's very possible to change it. Very possible. So especially, it's kind of one of those catch-22s. If you find out what could happen, and then you worry about what if it doesn't happen, or when's it going to happen, and that's going to shift the energy, so it doesn't happen sometimes. So it just depends. I don't know the exact situation, so I can't really say, but it really just depends. So, well, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Good. So that was a great discussion. I'm sorry we didn't get to thing I wanted to get to tonight, but that's all right.
You weren't meant to, I guess.
Yeah, we'll get that next time, I hope. Well, I'll be writing about it this Thursday, so we'll try to talk about it next week. But I appreciate everyone who connected, and I hope that everyone has a wonderful week. Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
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 Bye.